Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers-McSwine.
We want to welcome you back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana show. And today we will be covering some valuable information once again with our guest from last week, Mr. Will Young from the Indiana Reading Information Services. We have a lot of information to continue forth with. So Florence, we really enjoyed last week's show, and I'm really looking forward to Mr. Young's comments on this particular show.
So am I, Lee.
So we're going to get right to that, and we want you once again to take the time to listen and also view the comments that we're putting forth for this week's show. So take good care of all that good information that we send to you, and we'll be right back with Mr. Will Young.
NFB Newsline also provides weather alerts that are not always read aloud when they pop up on the TV screen. Television listings in many of the top-ranked magazines can also be found on the app. I'm glad that Newsline exists, and I believe that all people should have access to any publication that is printed.
I love the quotes of the news and almanac. Getting history facts through NFB Newsline is very interesting to me. I end my day with NFB Newsline.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
Wow, I scored a touchdown when I found sports on NFB Newsline.
I enjoy reading TV guide listings on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind. We read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
Bro, this new Travis Scott song is so lit, straight up.
Yeah, it's fire.
Yo, let me get started on all this craziness, like she tryna die, but better switch it up quick. Let me teach a lesson, teacher in the building, get ready for class, cause you about to get to school. And rule number 1, before you cross the street, look left, right, left again before you move your feet. Rule number 2, hold up, I'm talking to you, put everything down, you don't end up on the news. Rule number 3 is don't run, no driver is trying to hit a child, none. Rule number 4, while crossing the street, smile and wave, if not you might end up off your feet. Remember kids, it's lit to not get hit, don't follow these rules and your life might end.
Welcome back to this week's National Federation of the Blind Newsline show. And we are continuing our conversation with our guest from last week, Mr. Will Young. And Mr. Will Young, welcome back to our show.
Oh, thank you, Florence.
It is our pleasure to have you back on the show. And last week we were talking about Iris, and your volunteering, as well as your show, Veterans Voices. And let's continue on with that conversation. We talked about your volunteering and other things as well. So as far as the volunteers again over at WFYI, do all of the volunteers read? Are all of them readers, or do others, do some of them have other volunteering positions as well?
As far as I know, most of the volunteers are readers. There are some people that kind of help get all the programs on the air. But basically the volunteer staff is readers. And one of the things that I would like to mention is for your audience, your listening audience, if you would like to subscribe to Iris, if they do not already, there's an online application that they can download, and they can have someone assist them filling that out and send that back into Iris so that they get the passwords and the codes so that they can download it off the internet, or so that they can gain access to one of the radios that Iris has so that they can listen to the programs.
So how long does it take to subscribe to Iris?
Not very long. I'm not sure what the turnaround is from once you send your application in until you get the information that you need. That's not really my area of expertise there. Mandy and Brian would handle that sort of thing.
Okay.
Now, is there a fee for subscribing to Iris to use the services?
It's all free.
It's all free?
Yeah, it's all free.
Okay, and also the devices. Now, you said to download it on the internet. Is there an app for the Iris services?
No, you'll just go to the WFYI website, and inside of that, go to the Iris on demand site, and at that point, there's at the top of the screen is a button that you click for the live read, which is for whatever is going out over the air at that time. And then below that, there's probably 40 or 50 different programs that you can click on. And those are the programs that have been recorded previously, and you can listen to them.
Okay, now you mentioned about a radio. Now this radio, is it a radio that's sent out to the subscribers, or how is that
Yes,
accessed?
it will be sent out to the subscribers, and once they are done with it, if they move out of the area, it needs to be returned to Iris so that it can then be given to someone else later on. But the problem with the radios is that the range of the frequency is somewhat limited. I think I was told it was like 35 to 40 miles is about the range from central Indiana on that. So that's why a lot of times the website is much superior to that. But it's very, and the radio only picks up the frequency for Iris. It's not a radio that you can use for other programs or other radio stations or anything like that.
Okay, so we know that a lot of individuals that are blind or visually impaired, and even those that are print challenged, maybe not still aren't up to par with a lot of this technology, you know. Mm-hmm. And I find that radio would be very accessible to them. Much like NFB Newsline, they can just pick up their landline phone, mm-hmm. or they can go to their app, or they can go to the computer, or they can go to various devices that we have out there. So you guys, the internet is that one of your mainstays there right
yes.
now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, if a person gets a radio and they move or don't return the radio, is there any charges then?
Now that I cannot answer.
Okay.
I've never encountered that, so I don't know what the station's policy is in regards to that.
Okay, so you say shows that are recorded, individuals can go back and pick up those shows at any time?
Not at any time at this particular point in time. I think there's some ideas about possibly having like a library that you can go back to and pull something out of the archives. But at this time, it's whatever happens to be downloaded onto their website is what you can listen to.
Okay.
Now, if you opt into downloading the program onto your computer, then it'll be there so that you can go back later. Maybe there's a topic or some information there that you want to keep for a period of time or pass on to someone else. then you can download it. It's on your computer, and then at a later date, if you want to go back and bring that information back up, it's right there for you.
And that's for the technically savvy ones. But for those that are just, general users of just the radio, so they would have to listen at a particular time for, say, like the Indianapolis Star, or how does that work?
Right. Taking the Indy Star for an example, that's a live read every morning, 9 a.m. To 11 a.m. And then that's 7 days a week. That 2 hours is recorded and then played back later in the afternoon. I think it's at 3 o'clock, something like that, so that if you missed it or a portion of it in the morning, you can pick it up again later that afternoon. And all of the programs have multiple listening times, such as Veterans Voice, that is broadcast on Thursday mornings at 4 a.m. for those that are up and about at that hour. And then on Friday, I think it's 9:30 p.m. and then again on Saturday at 4 p.m. So there's times throughout the week staggered around for you to pick up your programs. And there is a listing on the internet as to what their schedules are on a daily basis.
So you will be getting your full newspaper?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Well, whatever they can squeeze in the 2-hour time frame, because some articles run considerably longer than others, but you get the majority of the newspaper, I will say that.
Okay.
Okay, so, I'll tell you, IRIS is a great service, Indiana Reading and Information Services. And we're going to come back and talk a little bit about something else you do here, and that's audio describing. So we'll be right back to talk with Mr. Will Young about audio describing. So we'll be right back. See you soon. No pun intended.
Thousands of Indiana residents feel isolated from the world due to vision problems. Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
I'm a Vietnam veteran. I'm blind. I read Stars and Stripes on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
Wow, I scored a touchdown when I found sports on NFB Newsline.
I enjoy reading TV guide listings on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind. We read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
We want to welcome you back once again to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana show, where we're interviewing Mr. Will Young. Mr. Young, we have shared a lot of information, and you you and Bob with the Veterans Voice have, you guys been working together for how long?
About a year and a half.
A year and a half. So, that's your first year. You experienced a lot. You guys don't see each other often, you say?
No, not too often.
Okay, but combined with the content of your show, it must be very valued. And we understand that you and Bob received the Rookie of the Year award.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
For 2018, Bob and I combined for our program, put in more hours than anyone else other than the Indy Star readers. And so Bob and I were both awarded the Rookie of the Year awards. It being our first year with WFYI and Iris Radio. And we also received on the station's website, we received more clicks onto our programs than anyone other than the Indy Star. And we both felt very, very good about that. Apparently somebody is listening to us. And that's one of the things that I'd like to pass on to your audience. If you do subscribe to these programs, and to Iris in particular, give them feedback. That's if there's something you dislike about a program, or there's a program that you would like to know more about or to hear more about, send them the feedback. We don't change until we get a reason to change. And I think that's true with any of these organizations. They basically rise and fall on the feedback of their audience.
It's true.
And I would say that is so true, and I would like to share that information to our listening audience too. You can pass that right on because that's very vital. Mm-hmm. You know, it is very vital as we have the comments being read. It is very vital that people do comment and let everyone know, even to your politicians, to your ministers, to any organization or agency that's out there. If you want to get more quality, or if you want to get issues out there that you're very interested in, let them know. That's a good, great comment there. So let's talk a little bit about this audio describers, and tell us what is an audio describer?
Basically, what an audio describer is an individual who relays visual information to someone who is blind or visually impaired of a scene from a theatrical production, a movie, a television show, art exhibits at a museum, a tour through the Indianapolis Zoo. Indianapolis has been kind of trailing behind many other major metropolitan areas in this regard. And Tony Bader has really spirited this idea into the Indianapolis market. And let's see, it was in May, we had a class for audio description. It was hosted by Dr. Joel Snyder, who's been doing it for many years. And Tony and Edie McDowell have also, they took his course a number of years ago. They've been audio describing for a number of years. And we're getting geared up for the new season at the Indiana Repertory Theater, which begins in September. And it is a service, and here again, it's a service that's only going to be there if people show a desire to use it. And if the people in the blind community call and want to know when a production that they would like to visit is going to have an audio describer. Currently, each production only has about one program or one showing with an audio describer. And the only way that we can increase that is if more and more people start using the service and seeing that there's a greater demand for it. Instead of forcing the audience to adjust their schedule to one performance, make it available more times per performance so that there's some flexibility for the audience, for the listening audience.
Okay, now how did you hear about audio description?
Through Iris. Mandy Bishop, the director of Iris, sent out an email to all the volunteers wanting to know if anyone would be interested in taking the course, and gave us the schedule on it. And I think there was about 6 or 7 of us from Iris that attended, and it was a 3-day session, and there was a lot of information packed into those 3 days, and it was very interesting, very informative, very enjoyable, And as a result, we've now got probably about 15 or 16 additional people who can qualify as audio describers and work with different theater groups and museums and various venues. Anything that a blind person would like to attend, but they would like to have the full range of what's going on. So it's there, and we're going to try and expand on it.
Well, is there a difference between an audio narrator and an audio describer?
Yes, I would say that the main difference, a narrator just basically goes through and narrates a written script along with whatever's there. A describer, and this is especially true in live theatrical productions, they're trying to pass on visual cues to the listener so that they know what's getting ready to take place or what is taking place on the stage at that time. And oftentimes, the amount of time that you have to get that information out is very short. You may only have 3 to 8 seconds to say who's coming on stage and where they're at and about what they're going to do. And you can't give away too much because you want the play to develop in the mind of the audience member.
Now, tell me, how would a blind person or a person that would qualify for the audio descriptive service, how would they get in contact with you, or would they contact the venue? How would they go about that?
You would contact the venue and find out, explain to them that you're blind, or you're bringing a person to the program that is blind, and they want to know if the service is available to begin with, and if so, the day and time. As it is currently with, and I can only speak about the IRT because that's the only one I'm familiar with at this time, is that most of theirs are Sunday matinees, and they're not all, but many of them are like the last Sunday of the month. It does change from one performance to another. And once you arrive at the theater, you request a listening device, and it's very similar to a very small transistor radio, and it has an earpiece that fits over one ear so that you can listen to the describer, who is located generally in a booth or backstage or in the balcony someplace, describe the events going on stage and giving you a layout of what the scene is.
You know, that to me is very important when you say so, Florence.
It is.
Because to have something described to us, when we're watching television, oftentimes they have a lot of silent scenes going on, and you're sitting there just wondering, well, what's going on? I'm listening, and I can't hear a sound. All I hear is different little clues, taps or whatever, and I'm not getting a full range of information. And there are devices that we have nowadays out there. The technology has really come forth to where we can go to the movie theater as well. And there's a device. You remember the name of that device?
Yes, it's called Fidelio.
Fidelio. You know, so where you can request the Fidelio when you go into the theater to watch a movie. And I think most theaters are now, they do have those. So that's great information for individuals that are going to theaters. So we're going to take us a short pause right here, and we're going to come back with the conclusion of our show. And so we just ask everyone to stay tuned as we conclude this particular show with Mr. Will Young, a man of many, many hats.
The
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
Thousands of Indiana residents feel isolated from the world due to vision problems. Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
I'm a Vietnam veteran. I'm blind. I read Stars and Stripes on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline.
Welcome back with our show and Mr. Will Young. And Will, we talked about audio description and your role and the demand for this unique service. Let's expound on that, if we will.
Okay, the blind community needs to contact venues that they would like to go to and see if there is an audio describer available for them. And if there is not, ask them why. And tell them that you would like, as a community, like to participate in whether it's a live production or an art exhibit, a special display or something, and tell them that there's an audience out there that would like it, but they have to understand what it is that they would be looking at or seeing if they had sight. If the venue does not know who to contact, tell them, contact Iris, contact this program, and they will then be directed to the people that do the audio descriptions.
Now, one other thing real quick, is there a fee to that audio description?
Not for the listener, no.
Okay.
There are some contracts that are signed between the audio describers and the venues in which the audio describer is reimbursed for their time.
Well, we want to encourage each and every last one of our listeners and viewers of this particular program to check into the audio description, check into the Indiana Reading Service here in Indiana. And we want to thank you once again for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So once again, we just want to say thank you. Will join us again next week. And we do have some very interesting guests lined up, as we always do. So take good care of yourselves, and God bless each one of you.
The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 855-963-6476. That's 855-963-6476. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.